We're going to talk about employee engagement today, but specifically, we're going to talk about how employees themselves are driven to engage with their work. We'll talk a little bit about the obstacles, the importance of self-engagement, and what you can do about it as far as influencing a greater degree of engagement in your employees. There we go. Just starting off with a little bit of facts about engagement. Gallup has done polling on employee engagement for a number of years, but the most recent poll in 2020 of organizations' employee engagement, we see that there's a shocking level of disengagement, in some cases active disengagement for some workforce or organizational workforces. And this is important because employee engagement is important to both the organization itself and the employee. And it's if you are a manager or you have to work with a workforce and you are trying to reach your optimum performance, you prefer to have engaged employees. So in this case, I would ask, as you go through this session today, what's the status of the employees in your organization? What is it that engages them? Do you have the kinds of employees who are just putting in the time, and or do you have disruptive employees? And what can you do about it? That's what we're going to talk about today. First of all, what's the challenge? If you have employees who aren't engaged, they're probably still doing the work of the organization. They're performing their tasks, but they're probably doing, if not the minimum of work, at least they're not going beyond what is asked of them. So they may be happy employees, but they are not your most productive employees. If they're actively disengaged, it could be worse than that. It could be that your employees are disrupting the organization in a way that leads to both their ability to be productive as well as their colleagues. They could be, in some cases, actively sabotaging the work of their colleagues and coworkers. An engaged employee, on the other hand, is somebody that is more focused on the job, on the task, on the work that they do, and are not only performing productively, but in many cases kind of going beyond that, their work, because they want to succeed, they want the organization to succeed. And today we're going to talk about how you are able to get employees to do that. We'll talk about the ways employees are motivated, the way that employees find purpose. It all comes down to the individual employee, and the solution, what we're going to talk about today, is how you can help individual employees find the reason to engage on their own, given the appropriate conditions. In order to do that, we're going to talk about what do we really mean by employee engagement. And it's not just as simple as happy employees. We're also going to talk about what is internal to the individual employee that drives their engagement, their reasons to engage. And then finally, we're going to talk about what you can do to help employees find the reason and find the motivators that will help them self-engage. So in essence, we'll be talking about what it takes to motivate the individual for engagement purposes, and to find the right levers and dials to turn in order to activate that employee engagement. So that's what we're going to talk about today. The first thought is, what are we talking about when we say employee engagement? It's not all about the employee. It's about a balance between what the employee wants out of their work experience and what the organization needs from that employee. So the first thing let's talk about is contribution, the contribution to the organization. How can we define that? How can we characterize that? It's the employee's ability to do what is asked of the employee in achieving what it is the organization needs from the employee, their value, if you will, to the organization. Can they do the work that's needed of them, and are they willing and able to do it? The other side of the equation is satisfaction. Satisfaction is more personal to the employee, and it's their ability to align the work that they're doing for the organization that they're working for with what they want to accomplish in life, including their career aspirations, the way they want to develop their skills, their personal values, and so on. So if we think of employee engagement in both of these terms, then we're kind of setting the foundation for what we can do to influence a greater degree of employee engagement. From the contribution side, if you have an employee that's engaged, then you have a better chance of not only getting what is expected, whatever performance expectations you've set for the employee, but in many cases, an engaged employee will find discretionary ways to help the organization because they understand what the work is, what the outcomes are, what the organization's strategy is, and they're excited to do something about it. For employees who are new hires or in the training or ramping up position, their value to the organization is still not demonstrated because they're gathering the skill, the knowledge, the ability in order to perform their jobs. But once they get trained and they're on the job and they get their assignments, that's when we need them to contribute. And what we would like is for them to be willing and able to contribute at a high level. So what are the things that influence this? What, as a manager, can you do to help influence their ability to engage with their work? Well, the first thing is that they need to have a clear purpose. They need to understand what's being asked of them, understand it clearly, to be on the same page with the manager as to what good performance is and what they're being asked to do. They also need frequent feedback to know how well they're doing and whether there's any need for course correction or where can they get better at performing their job, where they can get help and so on. They need the resources and the tools, some of which may have come during that onboarding process, but they also need the tools for doing the task that they have to do or the project they have to do. And they also need to know where they can get help, where they can get more information about how to do the job better. And finally, over time, they need to be continually learning because the job typically will not stay the same. It will evolve over time. Organizational change will affect it. They will want to develop their skills. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in the presentation. So these four areas are things that the manager can influence that will contribute to how an employee is able to provide value to the organization. So that's one side of the equation. The other side is employee satisfaction, and this has to do with their sense of how their well-being is working at what their work experience is at your organization. And for them, it's all about what they're trying to achieve internally. They have values and they want to go somewhere in their career and they want to develop the skills they'll need to progress through that career. So satisfaction has to do with that. Impact on those, on employee satisfaction, factors that impact it. I think everybody's familiar with the idea of compensation. Often this is the first thing that management thinks of when it's trying to address employee satisfaction. Turns out it's not the only one, and perhaps not even the best influencer of employee engagement. We also talk in terms of career and job fit. Not every employee is fit for every job. Sometimes it takes a while for a new employee to find the right job within an organization, to find the right alignment with what they want to do in their lives. So often it's not a matter of one and done. If you have an employee with potential, you want them to be able to see possibilities of different job positions where they might shine. So you want to give that some consideration. Reward and recognition. This is important to employees to feel a sense of satisfaction. They want to know that what they're doing is valued. They want to develop their own reputations. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in this presentation. And then finally, in a lot of cases, an employee may join an organization because they're aware of the cause or the mission, and they're committed to that cause or mission. It has been documented many times that when workers hear some of the feedback from customers about how important the work they did or the service they provided was to the ultimate customer, that their engagement level rises because they feel that gratitude or that value. So those are two things, or two areas that we're trying to impact: contribution and satisfaction. Contribution to the organization and satisfaction for the employee. And that's a win-win situation we're looking for. But there are some other things that aren't as clearly defined as contribution or satisfaction factors. Things that may be beyond your control as a manager, but you have to take account of them as you try to engage your employees. First one is, of course, the manager themselves, the supervisor. We've heard the anecdote many times that when people leave organizations or when people stay with organizations, it's because of their supervisor. The supervisor is the one who might be able to control most of the factors we just talked about for contribution and satisfaction. Another part of the organization is the senior executives in the upper level management. And in this case, engagement can be impacted by how the employee perceives leadership or upper management in terms of the company, the organizational values, or the reputation of the organization based on decisions made by senior executives. So employees will feel more engaged if they feel they're with an organization where the executives walk the talk and exhibit and demonstrate the values that they've set for the organization. Another factor that can impact how an employee engages is the level of organizational change, which has been increasing over time as the future of work changes and we see changes in technology and approaches to management and so on like that. This affects individual employees when it disrupts their normal work behaviors, their methods of doing work. They're going to have to learn new ways of doing work and so on. It may also be organizational changes where their work is being moved to another part of the organization, or they're getting a new manager. There's a lot of anxiety and fatigue with change if it happens too often or there's too much of it at one time. And then finally, external factors, things beyond work that might involve the individual employee. They may have problems in their family life. They could have medical problems. There are things beyond the workplace that somehow can't be kept out of the workplace because they affect the individual. So these are things that you need to take account of as you're thinking about how you're going to keep your or provide an environment for your employees to be engaged. And it's the kind of thing you have to do for individuals. You have to know your subordinates in a way that you can understand and perceive what's happening in their lives, and you can take appropriate action. So let's talk about different engagement levels, given that we have those two variables, satisfaction and contribution. You have the almost engaged people who are high satisfaction and high contribution. They're people who are diligent. They get their work done. You generally have no problem with them because they know what the job is, they like what they're doing, and they're good performers. I'll hold off on maximum engagement here in a second. Disengaged people, although they're the ones who have low satisfaction, they're not really happy with the job, and the organization isn't particularly happy with their contribution to the organization. So these are people that you're going to have to do something about. They may be candidates for switching jobs. They might find one that is more engaging for them. They may be the kind of people that will do the job, but they're just kind of staying for the paycheck. They want to leave, that kind of thing. So you're looking to find these people to see if you can find a way to influence and enhance their engagement for the organization. There are the worker bees, the people who are really happy, maybe not all that productive, but they're happy with their situation. Might be a low-stress job, might be an easy job to perform, but they're really not working to their potential. And those are people you would like to identify and then help them provide more contribution to the organization. And finally, there's the people who are low satisfaction and high contribution. In a lot of cases, they're the ones who get a lot of the work done, but they're not really happy with what they're getting out of it. So we call those the burned out ones. What you're looking for as far as employee engagement ultimately is the unicorn, which I've termed the Engagius Maximus after having watched many Roadrunner cartoons. This is what you're aiming for. People who are at the maximum level of satisfaction. They really love their job. They love what they're doing. They're committed to the organization, and they're high performers. They are going beyond what's asked of them because they're interested in doing that. They're performing, they're delivering the products and services that they need to perform. So that's what you're headed towards. You may not get there with every employee, but that's where the goal is. So we talked about defining employee engagement, and that's in terms of contribution and satisfaction. Now let's talk about how an individual employee actually gets engaged. What makes them engaged? What are the levers and dials we can turn to get them engaged? Well, the first thing to start with is that every one of them has a brain. And an engaged employee is one that is using their brain to the maximum extent that the work environment allows them to. So what we would like to do is give them an opportunity to put that brain to work. So what can we do? We can look towards their personal motivation. You can't motivate an individual, but you can set up the circumstances for them to be motivated. We also want to align with their purpose, align their purpose with the organization's purpose, and we want to set the prerequisite conditions in which people who are inclined to engage will prosper. So we're going to take each one of these in sequence. For motivation, As I said a little bit earlier, you can't directly motivate an individual who is not motivated internally. You can set the conditions that will energize the employee. So that's what we're going to work on. We're going to try to influence why they are motivated. We can set, for any individual, they may be responding to external drivers, for instance, rewards or compensation or awards. Possibly on the negative side, they may be responding to punishments for low performance. All of those are kind of external, things that they're reacting to rather than things that are internal. Another source of motivation could be introjection, or the easiest way to understand that is guilt. They may feel guilt or they may feel shame in not performing up to standard. They may have an internal, and this is internal, an internal voice in their head that is telling them that they're not good enough or that they haven't done a good enough job. While they may wind up performing because of that guilt or shame, it is not the most healthy motivator of their engagement. As we get more to the internal of the employee, when they see value in the work that's being done, and they can connect the work to either the mission of the organization or the logical next step in the task that they're working on, or somehow seeing other value that comes out of the work that they do, that can be a motivator for them. Beyond, and if it's internal, it's a stronger motivator than either of the external or the introjection drivers. But the one that's probably most effective, if you can help the employee get there, is a situation where their motivation is intrinsic. And that means the work that they're doing, they have a deep interest in. It's the work they want to do. They might even have a passion to do this work. And if you can find an employee and put them with work for which they have an intrinsic motivation, then they're driven to engage with that work and are likely to become high performers. The second thing an employee needs is a sense of purpose. The motivation factors were their interest or desire to engage. The sense of purpose is what gives them the reason why. To what end should I engage? And what is this doing for me? And what is this doing for the organization? So factors that you can affect for that employee involve understanding their personal purpose. As I said, the title of this organization is about self-driven employee engagement. So if we're going to do self-driven, we need to understand the individual employee. Everything that we're talking about here isn't broad brush across the workforce, taking action to which you expect all members in the workforce to respond. It's going to be an individual, personal thing. So for a sense of purpose, people have personal purposes, their career, their targets, things they want to achieve in life, those kinds of things. So if you understand that, and then you combine it with the organization's purpose to understand or to at least explain for the employee's benefit, what is the organization trying to achieve? What is its mission? And is that of interest to this particular employee? If they're going to work for an organization, they may have joined an organization that has to do with nonprofit or providing a particular service, government service, and they think that's important. They may have joined the organization to do that. So personal, organization purpose, and then What aligns the two of them is their role, the role that they play in their work circumstances is what can align their personal goals or their personal purpose with their organizational purpose, what they do for the organization that helps the mission and their personal purpose. So understanding these for the employee and trying as best as possible to align the work that they do, their role, or to have them see the connection between their personal purpose and their organizational purpose is something that will help them with self-engagement. The last piece is the kind of the prerequisite workforce or workplace conditions that enable engagement. And by conditions, I don't mean necessarily the physical conditions. We're talking about the conditions in the workplace that support employee engagement. They have some expectations. If they're going to engage, they have some things that need to be in place in order for them to engage to the maximum extent. So the first one is a degree of autonomy. If they are going to commit to the work, if they have a sense of purpose, if they're motivated to do the work, they will be more engaged if they have some control over what they do. Now, I'm not talking about violating, process discipline or anything like that. I'm just saying the work they do, they're given the opportunity to direct how they do it or in what sequence they do it, with relation to their ability and their performance. As they become more competent, you as a manager might provide them a little bit more autonomy on how they do their work. You set the expectations for them, and they can figure out how to do it. So we're not just talking about everybody having a say in everything. The second thing an employee wants is an opportunity to master the work that they do, to get better at the work that they do, so that their value to the organization can increase and they can be recognized for that increase. So they need the opportunities not only to do the work, but to also have continual development opportunities to allow them to get better at the work that they're doing. Third one is, or the third factor, condition that they need is they need some feedback. And we talked about feedback a little bit earlier, but they need to know that what they're doing is considered good performance. If it isn't, they need to understand why it isn't. But they want to know that they're adding value and they're doing a good job. So this is where recognition in other managerial actions can come into play. And then finally, they want to know that what they're doing is important to the organization, that the job that they have is important, it's worth doing, it's helping the organization achieve its mission. So for them, to be engaged, if they have some level of these four conditions, then they're in a position to engage more fully, and you can get the best out of them. Now, we talked about what engagement was. We talked about how employees are driven to engage, motivation, purpose, and conditions. What can you do as a manager to help create the environment in which employees can self-engage? If you can create that environment, they can begin to kind of take ownership of their engagement and prosper. So in this case, for a manager, in years past, for decades, of course, a manager managed. They directed activity and they gave feedback and assessed performance and all of that. But in the new world where you're asking employees to be more self-engaged, what they need more than managing is coaching and guidance. So in this case, what you can do for your employees is to communicate expectations so that they know clearly what it is they're being asked to do or what it is they're being asked to engage with, to develop their capabilities for engagement. And in this case, I'm not talking about necessarily their work capabilities as much as their ability to understand what can motivate them about this work, how their purpose aligns, how they can take advantage of the conditions. And then finally, when they are engaging, when you do see them that they're going beyond the minimum and they're excited about the work they're doing and they want to know more about where the organization is going, find a way to recognize that engagement. So taking those three independently, the first one is making sure that they understand expectations so that they know what good performance is before they're evaluated for that performance. It has happened in the past in organizations that a performance plan is put together, but it's not clear to the employee how they're going to be evaluated. What does good performance look like? What does bad performance look like? And they can tell the difference. So in this regard, what we need from managers to help their employees engage, first of all, starting off with the big picture. Where is the organization going? What is it trying to do to get there? And then their role and responsibilities of the individual in that strategy. How does the work that individual is doing contribute to that big picture? Where do they fit in to the big picture? Once they're working, then managers can help them by coaching them, by helping them understand what the problems and challenges are that they face in their particular task, to help them think through how they might approach and resolve those challenges, just to get them thinking about how things can improve. And then finally, feedback, and this would be kind of personal feedback. How are they doing? This goes to the affirmation need that they have. Where can they do better? Where can they get help? This is not about blaming. It's really about helping and enabling the employee to become more capable at work and to engage more fully. And that winds up being kind of a self-repeating cycle. So communicating expectations, developing their capability to engage. This is where you're trying to put them in positions where they can take advantage of their engagement drivers. They can act on them. They can say, oh, this helps align me with my purpose. This also provides me some joy. I'm interested in doing this kind of work. So things that you can do. You can work on their motivation. You can assign them to things where they have a passion, or they have an interest, or they can see kind of a future for them. You can also assign work that aligns with their purpose or strengthens their alignment with the organization's purpose, where they become a little bit more tightly integrated with something that is helping the organization carry out its mission. And then finally, you can tailor your ability to provide those conditions, the autonomy, the mastery, the affirmation, and the evidence of efficacy that will help them see the reason to self-engage. And then finally, if you've got employees that are taking advantage of their opportunity to engage, they're seeing what you're doing and they are committing and engaging directly with their work, then you want to recognize that they're doing that, to give them, to kind of reinforce that behavior. So as a manager, if you're their manager, you have the opportunity to provide them the recognition. You can recognize a good job. I think we've all heard the story of how important it is to employees that their manager takes the time to talk about their job and to recognize a good performance or good job. That's important to employees. It's also important for employees to feel that their coworkers and their colleagues respect them, and that they develop a reputation as a good teammate or a good contributor. That helps with engagement. The organization, of course, may have some awards or recognition mechanisms so that not just the manager and the nearby peers understand their value, but the entire organization has come to the conclusion that this employee is valuable. And then finally, external opportunities to recognize contributions to the organization, or in some cases, contributions to the wider discipline that they practice or the industry that they work in. So recognizing when employees engage is a reinforcement mechanism for their own self-engagement. So in conclusion, the points I kind of want you to take away here is that to understand the win-win proposition of employee engagement, it's not all one-sided. The other thing is to understand that the engagement is driven from internally to the employee, but that you as a manager can actually help them increase their ability to engage by helping them align with their motivation, to act with their sense of purpose. And as a manager, you can create the conditions that support and reinforce employees who are engaging. If you can get to engaged employees, you'll find that they often become the linchpins of your organization, the high performers, the ones who can be delegated the responsibility for important tasks because they have the right commitment, the right ability, the right enthusiasm for doing what the organization needs. So it's in your hands to help with engagement, and you can do it. Sorry. Perhaps, Alan, we have questions?